food security and its significance, food security and the hunger, food security and the malnutrition, food security and global concerns, food security measures and their impact. Dear learners, food security is very, very important in the present world. It ensures and refers to the ensuring the food for all. Actually, food is an essential item and it should cater to all the people. Most important steps to eradicate absolute mass poverty and laid a foundation for growth and development of the society. Food security demands adequate food production and distribution. Not only the amount of production should increase, but it should be adequately distributed among the people. Thus, the need for political will that will prioritize human development and create a favorable environment that will enhance sustainable development. While on one hand, such environment aids mass production of food, on the other hand, ruthless exploitation of land, wherein topsoil gets eroded, water gets exhausted, and soil loses its fertility. Such an environment subsequently loses its productive capacity. Dear learners, once the fertility of the soil is lost, then the production level of the food commodity will come down. The environment is further damaged, degraded, and destroyed by unplanned vast industrialization and massive use of industrial products like automobiles and industrial machinery, both calling for a very high intensity of energy and other resources use. Food security must be consistent with and conducive to such a balance. India is yet to achieve this as its mass population and poverty keep large sections so poor as to be unable to buy food at the prevailing market rates. If India is to achieve its goal of development with equity, social inclusion, and social justice, food security must be ensured for its population at all costs. Father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, has rightly said, God, who is unfathomable by human understanding, and it means God of the poor, God appearing in the hearts of the poor. For the poor, the economy is the spiritual. We cannot make any other appeal to those starving millions. It will fall flat on them. But you take food to them and they will regard you as their God. They are incapable of any other thought. According to Gandhiji, the economic constitution of India, for matter of that, the world, such that no one under it would suffer from a want of food and clothing. In other words, everybody should be able to get sufficient work to enable him to make two ends meet. To be in nutshell, that Food is very essential for a human being, and without it, without taking food, the life will not be there. And so Gandhiji rightly said, to a hungry man, food is God. You go to any place and give some food item to a person who is starving, he will regard you as your God and eventually touch your feet. So this is the example that how food is important. Food security refers to the access for people, especially who are below poverty line. Food security is a social concept dealing with community needs. Adequate food means sufficient quantity of nourishment. According to the Planning Commission, according to the Planning Commission, a person needs a minimum of a daily calorie intake of 2,400 in the rural areas and 2,100 calories in the urban area. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, a person needs a minimum of 2,000 calories per day. In terms of quality, the food must be reasonable, nutritious, and enable a person sustain and develop his physical and mental faculties and personality. Therefore, food must include pulses, edible oils, milk products, meat, egg, and some fruits and vegetables. These together will give required nutrients like carbohydrates, protein, fats, minerals, and vitamins, which are necessary for healthy growth of the body and the mind. If people do not get the required diet, they are deprived of nourishment, which may adversely affect their capabilities, affecting their growth and development. Food security also means that people, especially poor, have the ability to pay in terms of purchasing power needed for purchasing the required quantity and quality of food in terms of nutrients. The absence of food security can have disastrous consequences for the deprived people and the society. Malnutrition reduces the immunity or resistance to diseases, often affecting adversely the whole lifetime. Inadequate food and nutrition add to hunger and keep people weak, underdeveloped, and inefficient. Most vulnerable are the women and infants, महिलाएं और बच्चों are especially vulnerable in terms of food insecurity. People deprived of food remain unemployed or face a very poor quality of employment with low wages, which lends to waste of human resources. Society with significant section deprived of food security make development meaningless as it results in an unbalanced development where the rich get richer and the poor degenerates into more acute poverty. The absence of food security retards a society's development while adequate security releases productive human resources and nation building. Food security, poverty, and the hunger. Food security in India in terms of poverty and hunger presents a very unsatisfactory picture. The higher the level of poverty, the lower would be the purchasing power of the poor people. Pertaining to the hunger, the government, both at the center and states, have been taking serious and strong measures to promote food security by making food available at cheaper rates, by promoting employment and the poverty eradication program. There have been some improvement in eliminating starvation and reducing calorie deficiency, but the problem of mass hunger in the contrary has not disappeared. Dear learners, one very pertinent example today, which I can cite, that providing food at the rate of rupees 5. It was established by the then Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik, and now also the present Chief Minister Mr. Mohan Charan Majhi is continuing these food items at rupees 5 at different places in different cities of Odisha. Why this? Because the government feels that no one should be hungry and hunger should be removed at any cost. The International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, in its study, Millions Fed, has given credit to India for some good innovations like farming and developing milk network. But it says that still India has the world's largest number of hungry people, more than 200 million food insecure people. In this regard, its rank is 66 in the list of 88 countries. Dear learners, in your term and exam, if you are asked a question, what is the rank of India as per the IFPRI report, you can say it ranks 66 in a list of 88 countries which were in the survey sample. Food security and malnutrition. Food security is not only a matter of quantity of food, but also a quality in terms of nutrients. If you go to any doctor, it's a malnourished person, they talk and prescribe, give you a prescription. In any government hospital or a private hospital, they tell that you consume the balanced diet, protein intake, carbohydrate intake, they all give you vitamins. So why they give? Because by prescribing a balanced diet, they will be catering to your nourishment. In India, the availability of nutrients in a poor man's food is very scanty. According to one expert, Professor Hanumant Rao, in India, food security unfortunately has become synonymous with food grain security. Not only are the nutrients inadequate in poor persons' food in India, but also the general standard of living of the poor masses is also poor in comparison to other countries. For example, in 1995, the annual per capita grains used in India was 200 kgs, while the same was 300 kg in China, and in USA it was 800 kgs. Similarly, in case of milk, the per capita annual milk consumption in India was 34 kg compared to 288 kg in the USA. In case of several nutrients like poultry, there is hardly any consumption by the India's poor. Global Hunger Index, GHI. The Global Hunger Index 2009 highlights the fact of India's poor nutritional performance. 21% of the Indian population was undernourished. Brown Lester, the author of Tough Choices. Dear learners, Brown Lester, the author of Tough Choices, has argued that just as ideological conflict was the defining issue of the previous era that has just ended, the defining issue in the emerging era will be food security. So, Brown Lester, in his book Tough Choices, has depicted or highlighted, dear learners, has depicted or highlighted the emerging era will be food security. Now, utmost importance, both the central government under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and our state government under the leadership of Shri Mohan Charan Majhi ji is giving utmost focus on the food security. Rising demand and instability in supply and prices. Globally, the demand for food is rising fast, especially in China and India, which pushes up global demand significantly. These countries are also experiencing, dear learners, rapid and steady economic growth, which raises the income and purchasing power, resulting in a higher demand for better quality and commodities. With the rising demand and fluctuation in supply, prices too rise and fluctuate, creating uncertainties. India has been experiencing inflation intermediately. Lester Brown has explained the debate in this area of demand and supply and prices. He points out that both the World Bank and the FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization, were projecting a bright future of food surplus and declining prices in the 1970s and 1980s. China in the mid 1970s and under their modernization program, which commenced around 1978, there was a large increase of food production, and China felt it would never have to import food grains other than the seeds. But in 1994, prices rose sharply, forcing China to import massively, and overnight, China became the world's second largest importer of food grains after Japan. The measures for food security in India have been extensive, though their impact has been mixed. Some measures are long term measures, and these measures have multi-purpose aims, which include facilitating availability of food for the poor and promoting their welfare. Many of India's core problems, dear learners, mainly unemployment, poverty, and food security, are accentuated by the population pressure. Various employment and poverty eradication schemes like the IRDP, Swarna Jayanti, Gram Swarajgar Yojana, Swarna Jayanti, Sahari Rozgar Yojana aim at raising income and purchasing power of people and help improving the food security. The important measures are needed to protect vulnerable sections of the poor below and above the poverty line, women and children, and deal with their food security. And deal with their food security and widen their physical well-being. The public distribution system PDS also is very important. It ensures equitable distribution of food articles and protects the poor from high prices and provides the required minimum food. In India, PDS has been expanded over the time to provide not only food grains but also other essential commodities like sugar and kerosene. Food grains are procured and made available by the Food Corporation of India, FCI, set up in 1965. About 150 million families are covered under the PDS system. The system, that is the public distribution system, takes care of meeting the demands like instability in supply, the availability, and price stability aspects. But the operation of the PDS suffered from number of flaws. Leakage due to corruption have led to diversion of food grains to the open market, and not all the poor are getting the benefit. In order to cater for food security, the midday meal scheme was introduced. In 1982, the Tamil Nadu government introduced a scheme of free noon meals schemes, which became very popular and effective. Nutrition to children improved, and there was also a fall in the infant mortality. Inspired by the success, the central government introduced midday meal schemes in 1995 with the purpose of improving the children's attendance in the school, reducing the dropout from the school, and providing nutritious food to children of primary sections of aided schools. Security refers to the provision of basic food requirements for all. It refers to ensuring minimum food requirements to the poor and disadvantaged sections of the society are subsidized or concessional rates. Food security, dear learners, ensures the welfare of the poor and it's therefore highly valuable from the point of view of equity and social justice. It is necessary for helping in raising the standard of living, efficiency, and productivity levels in the country. In India, food security is needed because large sections of the society live below the poverty line. Unorganized labor, rural and urban. The laborer has to realize that labor is also capital. As soon as laborers are properly educated and organized and they realize their strength, no amount of capital can subdue them. Organized and enlightened labor can dictate its own terms. It is no use vowing vengeance against a party because we are weak. So, dear learners, I must say that a labor single handed is weak, but a united labor force, when they gather in en masse, they are not weak. They are a substantial force and that they can dictate term with the government. This is the opinion of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi ji. In India, unorganized labor refers to the vast segment of the labor force that has remained unprotected even after 6 decades of planned development. It includes agricultural laborers, low paid labor in small and services in rural and render services like the casual labor, handloom, power loom workers, BD and cigar workers, sweepers, scavengers, and other like self-employed and small professionals like electrician, plumbers, etc. If agricultural labor is taken out, the rest of the categories of unorganized labor would be classified together as informal sector labor. Much of it is found in the urban and semi-urban areas. Now also one hears of the migration of the labor. For example, labor from Balangir, Kalahandi, Sambalpur, Ganjam are migrating to neighboring states like Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, even to Maharashtra and Gujarat. They are searching for their own uh, monetary benefit and catering to the food security. India has often been referred to as a country of villages. Even Mahatma Gandhi has also highlighted upon it. At the time of independence in 1947, agriculture was the main occupation. Dear learners, the main occupation was agriculture with over 70% of population depending on agriculture and more than half of India's GDPs came from the primary sector. Majority of the workforce depends on this primary sector and the sector has not changed much as till date. Rural labor includes agricultural labor, rural artisans, craftsmen, educated science graduates, and technically qualified persons to deal with agricultural inputs and technology. Agricultural laborers include small and marginal farmers constituting an overwhelming sections of the rural labor. As the economy has been developing over a period of time, and more rapidly since 1991, the share of agricultural labor in the total employment has been falling. Socio-economic condition. The socio-economic conditions of rural labor are still highly deplorable. Access to drinking water was not available to 10% of the household in 2001 for India as a whole, and in case of rural areas, it was much worse, with about 27% of the household constituting poor laborers had no access to drinking water. Many of them do not have adequately built houses also. Literacy. The level of literacy and skill are low among rural labor. The general literacy rate, according to the 2001 census, according to the 2001 census, the literacy rate was 65.4 and still lower in rural areas. It is reported that in 1999-2000, only 2% of the rural workforce was professional and technical and related workers, and 1.4% constituted administrative, executive, and marginalized workers. The rural labor also includes bonded labor, whose poverty and indebtedness has kept them under the clutches of rich farmers and the landlords. It has been legally abolished, but the position of labor freed from bondage continues to be adverse compared to other laborers. Child labor exists in spite of several local, national, and international measures taken to abolish it. The problems of the labor are the social problems, economic problem, position of the unemployed, gender discrimination, and child and migrant laborers. Socially, the unorganized rural labor suffers from a poor status as large sections belong to scheduled castes and tribes and other backward classes and also minorities. The poor status affects their mobility in other fields also. In spite of the reservation and affirmative policies taken by the government, there is no improvement owing to the social stratification that affects them adversely. Economically, the rural labor has not been able to improve its position due to lower wages, despite the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, because of its poor implementation. A major economic problem is the presence of open unemployment, underemployment, and disguised unemployment. Lack of education and skills deter the employability of a person as high levels of illiteracy and limited skills become limiting factors. Gender discrimination and child and migrant labor. Gender discrimination affects adversely women workers who are paid much less than their male counterparts, even though this is unconstitutional. This picture, this practice is prominent in unorganized sector. The central and state governments have been following a multifaceted approach to help this labor. These means collectively attempt to deal with the major problems faced by the poor and rural labor. An important general measure has been the passing of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1992, giving a constitutional status for a rural self-government. This act aims at planning from below and with people participation. The act has given many powers, authority, and duties to local bodies so that they can function independently, planning actions suited to their local needs. Dear learners, but in the subject given to these bodies, organizing unorganized labor is not there. Though there is some welfare responsibility for weaker sections, it is difficult to plan measures for the benefit of all unorganized labor in rural areas. The passing of the Minimum Wages Act 1948 is another important measure that ensures some sustained support to the rural poor. Most state governments have fixed wages as per minimum wage legislation, but the implementation of the minimum wages legislation has been very, very poor. Dear learners, this is due to several factors like excess labor supply, low productivity, poor skills of workers, lack of effective organization of workers in rural areas, employers' inability to pay even minimum wages, and reluctance of the rich farmers to pay the prescribed minimum wages. Soon after independence, the government attempted a series of reforms in agriculture in rural areas. The land reforms consisted of schemes like providing surplus land to the landless labor, regulation of rent for small cultivators, security of tenure for small and marginal farmers, employment schemes. Another set of measures were attempted to provide employment opportunities that will uplift the rural poor gradually but effectively. The measures were broadly started during the fourth five-year plan 1969-1974. These included the Rural Workers Program RWP, crash schemes for rural employment CSRE, Employment Guarantee Scheme EGS in Maharashtra, and the Food for Work Program FWP. Measures for the rural labor. Rural labor in India is entirely unorganized with poor living conditions. Further, a measure announced is the Unorganized Sector Workers Social Security Bill. However, India still has a long way to go in improving the lot of the rural labor, and it is hoped that with the passage of rapid economic development, large sections of rural labor will be able to enjoy the fruits of development. Literacy. India's literacy rate has wide variations. In urban areas, literacy levels are higher, but unemployability depends on acquisition of skills and training. Here, 90% of the workforce is unskilled or less skilled. Thus, while urban labor may be more educated than the rural ones, such education is not associated with higher skills. Like the unorganized in rural areas, in urban areas, there is urban informal sector, which is nothing but urban unorganized labor, consisting of workers working in small establishments or self-employed. Those working are doing so in unhygienic working conditions, including longer working hours, lack of education, skills and training has made urban unorganized very vulnerable. With a large supply of unskilled labor, competition among urban poor for livelihood opportunities has driven the wage rates of the unskilled to very low levels. Minimum wages exist in law, but the excess supply of labor keeps the wages at a low level. There is also a significant section of child labor in urban areas that is highly vulnerable to all sorts of abuses. Constitutional measures. Measures to promote better governance of urban areas and more effective empowerment of urban local bodies is retreated via the passing of the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which came into force from June 1993. The Act devolves a constitutional status on the urban local self-government who will no longer be found as merely as arms of the state. Under the Act, Article 243 confers wide powers, authority, and responsibilities on urban local bodies, and the 12th schedule given the subjects that come under Article 243. Dear learners, the unorganized labor constitutes well over 90% of the Indian labor force. This vast section of over 400 millions presently is distributed in rural and urban areas from Kashmir to Kanyakumari among the men and women and among different categories of work and workers, wage, employed and self-employed in occupations and in micro enterprises. Analysis under major heads of rural and urban shows that when it comes to mobilization, training, and giving them income generation opportunities, there is immediate urgency and need for doing so. Government at central and state level are no doubt grappling with the problems and welfare of unorganized workers, government measures of unemployment guarantee schemes, family pension schemes, social security measures, and welfare payments for the aged and the handicapped. Many of these, for the benefit of unorganized labor, are commendable. A major initiative taken by the Government of India was the setting up of the Second National Commission on Labor in January 1999 to examine, among other things, the labor legislation and suggest umbrella legislation for the benefit of the unorganized labor. The Commission submitted its report in June 2002. The report brought out the poor conditions of work security for labor in the unorganized sector. In the country and suggested job access, job security, and protection against exploitation and provision of welfare measures. Dear learners, the unorganized labor thus must be mobilized and sensitized so that they can be empowered to raise their wages, standard of living, efficiency, and productivity, benefiting not only themselves but also the economy and society. Cooperatives may be involved. Cooperatives may be involved to train small producers like artisans and small garment makers. Associations for training self-employed like the bakers and the hawkers. This is in the Gandhian approach of promoting unity and harmony among all the unorganized labor and empowering them. Empowerment of the marginalized and the vulnerable sections in the marginalized are the women and the children. India, dear learners, is a large country from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, India, dear learners, is a very vast country from Kashmir in the north to Kanyakumari in the south and Kutch in the west to Kohima, Nagaland in the northeast. A liberal democratic and a heterogeneous society seeking the welfare of its people who are mostly poor. India is a complex network of people belonging to different races and ethnicity, languages, religions, and castes. Since large sections are poor, disadvantaged, and marginalized, the role of the state has become very important. India, until 1991, was a planned economy seeking to achieve a balanced and equitable development. Since large sections in India are poor, disadvantaged, and marginalized, the role of the state has become very important. India until 1991 was a planned economy seeking to achieve a balanced and equitable development. Though since planning has become a more indicative, still social sectors like employment, health, and education are still very much the focus of the 5 year plans and the Planning Commission. Now, dear learners, the Planning Commission has been redesignated. Dear learners, now the Planning Commission, under the dynamic leadership of Sri Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister of India, has redesignated the Planning Commission as Niti Aayog. During the past 6 decades of development, India has achieved rapid and impressive progress. It is now one of the fastest growing economies of the world. It is the fourth largest economy in terms of purchasing power, parity. It is a nuclear and a space power in several important areas like biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, information technology, IT. It is an emerging global power. 90% of India's workers in the informal sector where there is underemployment, low productivity, and low skill activity. Most of them are unskilled or have little skills. Regrettably, vast majority of India's workers are poor and marginalized. If India has to achieve its global goal of becoming an economic superpower in the future, these marginalized sections will have to be enriched with sound education, training, and skills. It is also not necessary that marginalization is carried out deliberately. In fact, doing so may be illegal and punishable by law. When the government at central and state levels come out with welfare and development schemes for the poor gets marginalized when these schemes are poorly implemented and the benefits do not reach the targeted poor or the disadvantaged. In other words, the words marginalized refers to the overt or covert trends within societies. Thereby, those perceived as lacking in desirable traits or deviating from the group norms tend to be excluded by the wider society and ostracized as undesirable. Marginalization can arise out of chronic exploitation of a sections of the people. In case of bonded labor, they are marginalized by the burden of the loans taken by their ancestors. They feel duty bound to work till it is liquidated. They do not know how the debt was contracted, on what rate of interest, and on what terms. Being illiterate and poor already, they exist like slaves exploited by the landlords or moneylenders, as the case may be. Empowerment broadly refers to the process of strengthening the marginalized sections. It is a multifaceted concept. The dictionary meaning of the word empower is to give authority or power, to give strength and confidence. It includes providing opportunities to the marginalized to learn and to get confidence and capacity to come out of their marginalization and become empowered to develop themselves freely. The marginalized group has to exercise great care of choosing their organization that helps them. A good idea would be to form their own organization and develop themselves because only they, as marginalized people, know what they suffer. Besides, there is always a chance of the organization they select to help them. On the contrary, make the marginalized depend on them for getting opportunities to develop themselves. Same may be the fate of relying on charitable philanthropist organizations who by their charity may make the marginalized more needy and even less empowered than when they were not dependent on such organization. However, dear learners, if the marginalized choose their organization judiciously or form their organization more carefully, then they may be able to help themselves much better. A competent and committed NGO that is operating in the field of helping the marginalized to get access to the opportunities of empowerment will be the greatest asset for such marginalized people. Empowerment is a slow and a steady, multidimensional process. All stakeholders interested in empowerment must come together, arrive at a consensus, and undertake harmonized and coordinated action in solving problems like poverty and unemployment. The affected, marginalized sections themselves may not be able to achieve self empowerment. They need to support, encouragement, and concrete help from others, from employers, from unions, from NGOs, and above all, from the government. Empowerment can be looked upon in the following way: a relief wherein marginalized survive no further defeat or fall, a resistance wherein they fight back to take control, may use political movement, reconstruction wherein marginalized build platforms of strength, rectification, wherein they remove internal injustice and inequalities. Empowerment is thus a multifaceted approach in empowering the unemployed, poor, wide-ranging activities on a long-term basis may be needed. The unemployed must be inspired and motivated to be interested in getting empowered and earning their livelihood. They must have access to job information and recruitment agencies like employment exchanges. They must also be provided training and provided training and imparted skills for which facilitating NGOs or government agencies may be needed. Once the position of women, Position of women. Women, especially the poor rural women, constitute the largest marginalized section in India and therefore deserve special attention. According to the 2001 census, India's total population was 1027 millions, of which the female population was 496 millions. Thus, roughly half of the population is women, and their marginalization should be a matter of deep concern for all. What Gandhiji said on the women: to call women the weaker section is a libel. It means injustice to women. If by strength is meant brute strength, then indeed woman is less brute than man. If by strength is meant moral power, then woman is immeasurable man's superior. Women in reality, most women are permanently working but not permanently employed in the workforce. It is this difference between work and employment which has become a major issue of equity today. That women constitute half of the population is a demographic fact. That they perform one third of the total work hours in the market is also recognized in official statistics. But calculations continue to show that women receive only about 5% of the world income. Their income is so low that most women have no margin for savings and hence ownership of any asset. Therefore, they have no independent control of directing income generation activity. If quantified, it would not be surprising that women own perhaps not even 1% of reproducible asset. This is the global profile of the women today. Women's problem of marginalization. The women's contribution to work and development is now better valued, especially in rural areas, but still stand marginalized due to many reasons. Their working conditions are poor and being unorganized, they are not able to fight for good working conditions. Even when there is legislation demanding good working conditions, they are not to be implemented effectively. Their wages are low because most of them are unskilled and there is excess supply of labor compared to demand. Many of the women have multiple roles to manage house, work, and children. This excessive burden makes their life one of oppression and hardship. The domestic work is unpaid and thus has lesser value than paid work. There are also multiple causes making their life miserable and marginalized. Job insecurity, backbending, work, and inhuman conditions make women beasts of burden. There are biases that women are less efficient and unreliable. When economy develops, they remain stagnant and are thus marginalized by development. In times of bad economic situations like recession, their job remains more vulnerable. Women remains marginalized due to discrimination, deprivation, exploitation, sexual and other harassments and atrocities, and poor implementation of government measures, including the laws. Empowerment of child labor. In recent years, there has been a dramatic change in the attitude about child labor. Dear learners, denial and indifference have given way to acknowledgement, outrage, and readiness to tackle the problem effectively. Righting the world of child labor will require a significant commitment of resources by the international community. A child is defined as the one who is below the age of 15 years. A working child can be defined as a child who is able to above the age of 4 and below the age of 15 who is doing labor either paid or unpaid and is working within or outside the family. Measures for the empowerment of the marginalized children. Dear learners, the most important efforts to eliminate child labor abuses throughout the world come from the International Labour Organization ILO, a special agency of the United Nations. Right from the year of its inception, the ILO adopted several conventions and recommendations concerning child labor, including a minimum age of 16 years for admission to all work, a higher minimum age for specific type of employment, compulsory medical examinations, and regulations of night work. The Government of India and state governments have taken a number of measures to tackle the problem of child labor. The Indian Constitution's directive principles prohibit the abuse of the tender age of children until 14 years of age. Several ILO conventions on child labor have been ratified by India. The Government of India has passed the Comprehensive Child Labor Act of 1986. There are measures to rescue child laborers and prosecute those who abuse child labor. There is ample scope to implement the laws and programs effectively and proceed to achieve child labor eradication. Free and compulsory education for all children till the age of 16 is essential to eliminate child labor. The Government of India has passed the Right to Education Act, but it needs to be rigorously implemented. Empowerment of SCs, scheduled caste, STs, scheduled tribe, and the OBCs, other backward caste. The SC, ST, and the OBCs have been facing several problems in the Indian society. Their position not significantly altered in spite of several measures taken by the governments since independence, though it cannot be denied that their position has been gradually improving in spite of the government implementing a wide variety of programs and schemes. Marginalization continues as one official report cites on the subtle examination of the schemes from the point of view of implementation. It appears much is said than done. In other words, much remains to be done. The position of SCs and STs has been clearly secured in Indian constitution by the maker of the constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, from its inception in 1950. Legislation to remove untouchability and protect them from atrocities in society has been a very important measure towards empowering these sections of the society. In 1981, the SC's scheduled castes constituted 15.8 and scheduled tribes 7.8 of the total population. In 2001, their population had increased to 16.2% for SCs and 8.2% for the scheduled tribes. Thus, they constitute a significant proportion of the population which is increasing. In Mizoram, dear learners, you may write in your term and examination. In Mizoram, a northeast state, the population of the scheduled tribe is very high, over 90%, whereas in Goa, it is less than 1%. Same in the case with scheduled tribe, whose proportion is much higher in northeastern states. The position of the OBCs, other backward caste, received significant attention after the Mandal Commission in the early 1990s. Adequate data are not available, but the OBCs constitute a larger number, over 40% of the population, than the SCs and STs combined. One recent compilation claims that central and state government includes union territories have enumerated 2,176 and 2,551 communities, respectively, as OBCs. These include the poor peasantry of the period of Jamidars communities that rendered traditional services like the barbers, the dhobis, the artisans, and communities without resource or skill base. The OBCs also constitute a very heterogeneous groups. Disabled workers. The disabled sections covers all those with visual, hearing, speech, locomotor, and mental disabilities and other permanent disabilities that may have arisen from accident, sickness, etc. According to 2001 census, there were 21.9 million disabilities in India. 75% of them live in the rural areas. Only 49% were literate. Again, only a small sections of them, 34%, were employed. Their disabilities become the cause of for their marginalization as it becomes difficult for them to get educated in their fields of choice. They may also be not fit, unemployable as normal persons. Since many of them are poor, their marginalization has become inevitable. Dear learners, in India, large sections of the society are marginalized. In a broad sense, over 90% of the labor force, which is unorganized, is marginalized. But this is too vast and heterogeneous. There are more specific large sections like women, especially poor rural women, the SCs. The SCs, scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, STs, the OBCs, other backward caste children, bonded labor, the disabled, and the old and the aged marginalization of such sections has led to development without social inclusion and social justice. Our analysis has pointed out that though the central and state governments and other civil agencies have contributed significantly to empower these marginalized sections, and there is no doubt some progress in this direction. A lot more need to be done to create a Gandhian society of peace and harmony, inclusion and empowerment, growth with equity, and of enrichment and sustainability, a more vigorous, purposive, integrated, and concentrated efforts by the government and society is needed. Dear learners, in your term end examination, you may get a question that write notes on the empowerment of the OBCs, helping the disabled, and supporting the aged, or a full-fledged questions. What do you mean by marginalization? Give examples from the Indian society. Another pertinent questions may be the marginalization of the women in India, how they are being empowered. Another pertinent questions which you may face in your term and exam is the problem of the child labor in India. Discuss the measures in operation for their empowerment. The international cooperation. Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, dear learners, peace will not come out of clash of arms, but out of justice lived and done by unarmed nations in the face of odds. The relevance and importance of international cooperation is increasingly vital in a world divided and torn by a thousand conflicts and race from between individuals, groups, communities, societies, regions, and nations in the international system. For example, dear learners, I have already said the First World War, it culminated, started in 1914 and continued till 1918. This war was very disastrous for the world. Lot of people were killed, their properties lost, and so there was the Treaty of Versailles, by which this war came to an end. Consequently, subsequently, the League of Nations was established, but to promote peace and solidarity, international cooperation. Dear learners, it could not materialize. There was the rise of Nazism in Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, and rise of fascism in Italy, led by Benito Mussolini. Both the rise of Nazism and fascism led to the Second World War, which started in 1939 and continued till 1945. The question may also come, how the Second World War started? It was started by the attack of Hitler, Adolf Hitler, over Poland. You see, now the present contemporary world, you see, there is war between Russia, Ukraine, Arab countries, and this Israel. You see how devastating peace has not come. So there is turmoil. Efforts should be made to end this turmoil with peace mission. The international cooperation has emerged to be a fundamental system transforming that is vital to influence and transform the nature of international relations, domestic, social, culture, civic, economic, and political discourse affecting individuals, groups, communities, and social interaction with the derivation on interstate and transnational relations in the global context. International cooperation is based on three major foundations of thought, namely interest-based, power-based theories and value-based constructions. International cooperation based on interest-based construction would focus on the ability of stakeholders in any conflict with rational objectives cooperating with the objectives collective action dilemma. An action dilemma is one where in conflict situations the scope of cooperation avoids outcomes for the cooperation. The power-based approaches of the cooperation. The power-based approaches focus on the importance of relative gains and security concerns to otherwise rational agents. The distribution of power and the presence of anarchy, the absence of an authority to enforce contractual obligations are critical factors that aid in the cooperation process. The nature of power-based approaches is predominantly static and positivist. This is because of the concern never changed and are external to the agents involved. Dear learners, the realist theory of cooperation attempts to explain cooperation given states overwhelming concerns with security, independence, and autonomy. The realist theory of cooperation does not concern with security, but has an emphasis for the systematic intolerance for relative losses. Knowledge-based theories, that is the cognitivism of international cooperation, focus on the way in which knowledge and intersubjectivity, shared knowledge and beliefs shape the agents, behavior, and identities that are engaged in cooperation. Strong cognitivism, on the other hand, dispenses with rational actors in favor of a sociological model of behavior. Agents' perceptions of their own and other identities and roles are central objects of study. Agents are role players, not utility maximizers. Strong cognitivism positions itself as an alternative to other approaches. The four schools of thought regarding the cooperation, there are four schools of thought. Number one, the power of legitimacy emphasizes the study of the society of the states and its rules. Number two, the power of argument is the study of communicative rationality. Number three, the power of identity is the study of the role specific understanding of self and others. Number four, the power of history is the study stabilizing the world order. The power of argument focuses on the viable understanding of the discourse as essential to the understanding of cooperation. In the realm of cooperation, the scope of strategic action attempts to control others, whereas communicative action attempts to convince them. The power of identity is based on the social construction of ideas and identity. The power of history believes that the current world order is a prudent is a product of Western history and ideology. Therefore, the construction of identities and norms are by powerful allied and historical forces. Therefore, these forces are responsible for the discrimination and control of ideas. There are certain societal actors who benefit from prevailing modes of production, accumulation, and dominance. The construct of hegemony is a set of ideas promulgated by a powerful hegemon in the interest of various allied. Frameworks of international cooperation. Having identified, analyzed the issues of challenges of international cooperation, it is essential to analyze the framework of international cooperation and the conceptual understanding which would be the basis of understanding The Gandhian percepts and practice of international peace, development, and cooperation. International cooperation is created and sustained through the mechanism of arriving at political solutions. It is built on political will, expressed decisions, and by formation of functional solutions demanded by inherent necessities. Dear learners, international cooperation, therefore, in the contemporary context, is built by creating a welfare mechanism by market integration and management of international economic interdependencies. Peace emergence from cooperation and common security production. Functionalism aids in the creation and subsistence of various economic, societal, and political necessities created by the progress of the force of production, and it results changes in the social system. Patterns of social and economic cooperations have emerged with the growth of international organization because of the autonomy of industrial society and characterized by the progress of the forces of production through the internationalization of socio-economic problem complexes. Conflict resolution are attempted through various means of interstate or suprastate cooperation. The Gandhian percepts for international cooperation. The, the Gandhian context of international cooperation, Gandhiji's approach to non-violence places him as a far-sighted, sensitive, and perceptive man of peace. He believed in the invisibility of peace and the possibilities that conflict could be transformed when the bitterness of the disputes are resolved through the spiritual means. For Mahatma Gandhi, peace building and international cooperation immense from a nationalist perspective. In many ways, he is an original contributor to the thinking of peace research. The concept of structural violence is a product of social relationship of the exploitation. Viewed from this angle, the control exercised by an imperial power is classic cause of structural violence, the British domination of India being one of them. The fight that Gandhi carried on against it was a non-violent fight against violence. Interdependence is and out to be as much the ideal of man as self-sufficiency. Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, the kingdom of God is within you. Mahatma Gandhi was convinced that cooperation could be possible when the spiritual transformation of divine images imparts on human and communities. Gandhiji affirmed the social essence of humanity and the indispensable nature of social interdependence. Social interdependence constitutes the basic cooperation that spans from the social to national to international. Rightly, Mahatma Gandhi practiced what he said. If you visit the Sabarmati ashram, you will find out yourself that how Gandhiji was devoting and advocating truth, non-violence, and peace. His life was missionary, and he wanted to do something for the country, and he rightly did it. Similarly, Mahatma Gandhi also experimenting what he was saying himself in the Vardha ashram. It is another example, along with Sabarmati ashram and the Vardha ashram, that Gandhiji was doing a lot for the humanity. Even when he was jailed in Pune, he was advocating for peace and non-violence. Dear learners, the Indian National Congress was established in 1885 by A.O. Hume, a retired British civil servant, to bring all categories of people in one platform and to speak out their mind for the cause of the freedom. Dear learners, it is very pertinent that in the first session of the Indian National Congress, there were only 72 delegates. But with the passage of time, till we attained independence in 1947, the number of delegates increased manifold. People from all walks of life, they attended the Indian National Congress session with missionary zeal, and they were advocating for the freedom of Mother India. If the period we can divide from 1885 to 1947 in three stages, 1885 to 1907 is the Surat split, and from 1907 to 1919 the second stage, and from 1919 to 1947 the third stage. Dear learners, it is very pertinent that the third stage from 1919 to 1947 is known as the Gandhian era. You see his missionary zeal. And whatever he was saying, he was practicing. He was at the round table conference and he advocated for the freedom of the country and for peace. Gandhiji, dear learners, affirmed the social essence of humanity and the indispensable nature of social interdependence. Social interdependence constitutes the basis of cooperation that spans from the social to national to the international. Mahatma Gandhi reiterates the integrative and functional cooperation of all humanity. He quotes, humanity is not divided into watertight compartments so that we cannot go from one to another. They may occupy 1,000 rooms, but they are all related to one another. The essence of social interdependence is the true basis of social, national, and international cooperation. He affirmed his faith in the percept and experience of ahimsa as the basis by which peace is created, influenced by Christ's sermon on the Mount of Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Gandhiji believed in the innate nature of the divine in human mind and conscience, by which values of peace and harmony would overcome the situation of conflict, or in other words, transform conflicts into cooperation. Gandhi's order of holistic logic for a secure and more peaceful world is on the following foundations. Global, conventional, and nuclear disarmament, preservation of environment and ecology, resolving the population poverty, unemployment challenges, peace through substituting conflict and war thought, globalization with a human face, evolving a global culture of empowering the weak as strong and able. Gandhiji linked the cooperation of the non-violent security to the decentralized economy and the ideal political order of national and international community of states. This vision was perhaps the first elucidation of comprehensive security based on non-violent social, economic, and political order, non-exploitative and cooperative and social economic exchanges, regeneration of the individual with a wholesome education leading to progressive social, cultural, and political reform, gradual reform of communitarian, social, national, and international sectors through democratization and the empowerment of the individual. Thus, dear learners, the international cooperation has emerged to be a very significant theme of study and analysis and research in an age of proliferating nuclear weapons. As we see the disaster now in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Arab countries, relentless pursuits of a radical terrorism based on suicidal variants, a environment with a fragmented economy, the search for alternate pattern of economic society, polity and ecology based on a spiritual regeneration is essential. The Operation Sindhu, you see the India-Pakistan relations. They betrayed us with terrorist acts and attacking our borders in Jammu and Kashmir. Therefore, the Operation Sindhu, and it was a lesson for them to do away with all terrorist activities. The Gandhian paradigm of peace, development, and the freedom of nations based on decentralization pattern of economy offers a credible alternative. Viewing the different theories of cooperation in the domestic and international context, one should observe the trends of international cooperation and have been more oriented towards functional and structural aspects of integration. The contrasting features lies in the Gandhian approach of international cooperation geared more towards a moral, spiritual basis of rejuvenation, leading to a decentralized pattern of governance and a voluntary federation of states involved in the process. While the structural theories of federalism and functionalism offer the systematic basis of cooperation, the focus has been more on economic and social necessities and the negative features to avoid conflicts. The Gandhian approach, on the other hand, offers the positive accents of peace building and the comprehensive scope of human security. Dear learners, the UNO The United Nations Organization was established on 24th October 1945 after the disaster and catastrophe of the Second World War to bring peace in the world. Of course, there was Cold War, but now the superpowers, America and Russia, upcoming powers, China, India, are thinking for peace in totality in the world. And it is the only Gandhian peace can sustain the world. And I am concluding by quoting a line of Robert Frost. Woods are lovely, woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Dear learners, I feel and wish that peace should be there in totality. If there are conflict, they can be resolved through the Gandhian concept through peaceful dialogues across the tables. And it is possible. And our Prime Minister is advocating this theory of peaceful dialogue across the table, Honorable Shri Narendra Modi. Yes, I feel there should be dialogue across the table in the Gandhian way, and international cooperation is thus a summation of conflict, resolution, peace building, comprehensive human security, in which the individual thrives. I repeat, dear learners, in which the individual thrives in a collective that is based on the principles of goodwill and cooperation. You think when there is a war-like situation, say in India and Pakistan, you see the conditions of the poor. They have nothing to eat. And there is catastrophe at the border. Terrorism is being built in the POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So we should do away with terrorism. The international body, what I said, the United Nations Organization should call the leaders and they should sit in the table and to do away with peace in the Gandhian method. The Gandhian method, I feel, is the only remedy. Because there will be conflict in the war. The modern world is agreed with a war-like situation. We do not know what will happen tomorrow. And a brilliant scientist, Nobel awardee, Einstein said, if there will be third world, no one will live. All will die. If there is a nuclear war, all things will be destroyed. So there should be attempt for peace in the Gandhian way, and this should be the role model for others. Hats up to Mahatma Gandhi ji, who advocated peace, truth, and non-violence for the world. He is no more, but his theories are still alive in Sabarmati Ashram, at Wardha Ashram, and even in different places. He visited in Odisha. He visited Odisha, nearby Delan, in Puri district. And Cuttack and Kendrapada district also. You see, Gandhian approach is the only remedy for maintaining peace. And I conclude that international cooperation is only possible through peace method, peace building, conflict resolution, and comprehensive human security. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.